In the sultry summer months of 1943, within the confines of Camp Crossville nestled in Tennessee, a seemingly insignificant object, a simple glass bottle, held within it a marvel that captivated the attention of a German soldier. The liquid inside, a bubbling brownish fluid, fizzed softly and shimmered as it moved, its effervescent nature mesmerizing him, for he had never encountered anything quite like it before. This soldier, who had spent the past 2 years engaged in relentless combat across the harsh deserts of North Africa, had become accustomed to the sparse, humble rations that sustained him, hard, dry biscuits, and the bitter, steaming coffee produced from the renowned ersatz blend. Yet, here was a different kind of refreshment, a sweet, sparkling beverage known as Coca-Cola, which seemed to embody the very essence of the impossible, made tangible. This drink, costing only 5 cents at the camp's canteen, was not a luxury reserved for the wealthy or the privileged. Rather, it was an affordable pleasure accessible to the ordinary soldiers, including the guards who informed him that even American children paid the same modest sum out of their allowances to indulge in this treat. The significance of this small purchase was not lost on him. It symbolized a world of abundance vastly different from the scarcity he had known. Across various American prisoner of war camps during that same summer, a staggering number, 371,683 German prisoners, many of them seasoned soldiers, found themselves confronted with an unanticipated reality that starkly contradicted the relentless propaganda they had been subjected to by the Nazi regime. The propaganda had painted a picture of American weakness, of a nation beset by decay and disunity. Yet what they encountered was altogether different. These prisoners discovered a land where ice cream was not a rare luxury, but an ordinary dessert, where soft drinks, like Coca-Cola, were an everyday staple readily available to all, and where candy bars, once considered a rare and coveted indulgence, were so plentiful that guards sometimes handed them out freely. Such simple pleasures, these sweet confections and chilled treats, were for many of these prisoners unfamiliar delights, foods that most German children had never experienced before. Yet, these small, seemingly trivial luxuries began to have a profound impact. They systematically undermined the very foundations of Nazi ideology. Instead of the image of a suffering, impoverished nation, these encounters revealed an America of abundance, where production and industry had created a society capable of providing plenty, even for prisoners of war. The mathematics of plenty was written in sugar, carbonation, chocolate, and ice cream, manifestations of American industrial might that rendered German deprivation not a noble sacrifice, but a needless suffering. What initially sparked awe and curiosity among these prisoners gradually transformed into a complete psychological awakening. The illusions of Nazi propaganda crumbled before their eyes as they witnessed firsthand the material comfort and everyday prosperity of the United States. The sense of wonder at American confections and luxuries ultimately evolved into a recognition of the stark contrast between Nazi ideals of sacrifice and the reality of American abundance. This realization was a powerful blow to their ideological beliefs, planting seeds of doubt and disillusionment. Meanwhile, the conclusion of the North African campaign marked a significant turning point in the war. In May of 1943, the surrender of the Axis forces in Tunisia resulted in approximately 250,000 German and Italian soldiers falling into Allied captivity. These veteran desert fighters, who had fought fiercely under the command of Field Marshal Rommel, had previously succeeded in pushing the British back across the desert sands to Egypt, demonstrating their formidable combat skills. Yet, despite their experienced status and their reputation as tough survivors of the unforgiving North African theater, they now faced the stark reality of captivity, knowing that their expectations of harsh treatment might await them. Their minds were filled with uncertainty, shaped by the brutal campaigns they had endured and the harsh discipline they expected to encounter as prisoners of war. Nazi propaganda had meticulously prepared German soldiers for the harsh realities they expected to face at the hands of their enemies, painting a bleak picture of American brutality, relentless starvation, and inhumane treatment. The narrative they absorbed suggested that capture by American forces would mean a swift descent into suffering, extreme deprivation, and suffering that would push them to the brink of despair. Yet, the reality they encountered upon surrender was starkly different from these grim expectations. Within mere hours of laying down their arms, these soldiers found themselves face to face with American military personnel and their surprisingly generous provisions, known as field rations. These rations, which American soldiers often grumbled about due to their simplicity and monotonous nature, actually contained a surprising array of nourishing and comforting foods: crackers, processed cheese, candies, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. For many German soldiers, who had endured months of minimal and often inadequate sustenance, these provisions were nothing short of a feast, offering a taste of abundance and comfort that they had long been deprived of. Military records from the period reveal that at the processing camps in North Africa, the U.S. Army went beyond basic nourishment. They served pancakes drizzled with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk, foods that had disappeared from German military rations many years prior, replaced by preserved, processed, and often inferior alternatives. This systematic approach to feeding prisoners with high-quality, plentiful food began immediately upon surrender, a deliberate effort designed not only to nourish, but also to influence psychologically. The profound impact of this generosity would only be fully understood in retrospect, as a crucial factor in breaking down enemy morale and reshaping perceptions about the American war effort. A German officer, later giving testimony to the International Red Cross, recounted that their expectations of a brutal and unforgiving captivity were shattered when the Americans chose to feed them better than their own army had ever done. "We anticipated being starved as prisoners," he admitted, "but instead, the Americans provided us with food of an unexpectedly high quality." This stark contrast between expectation and reality marked the beginning of a slow but powerful lesson: that American resources and generosity could challenge the perceived might and brutality of their military adversaries. The process of educating German prisoners about American abundance was further reinforced during the voyages across the Atlantic in the summer of 1943, when Liberty ships transported thousands of prisoners of war to the United States. These ships, produced on a colossal scale, a new vessel completed approximately every 42 hours at their peak, became floating classrooms of American industrial might and resourcefulness. Each voyage transported up to 30,000 prisoners, offering them a glimpse of a society flush with abundance. Naval records from this period show that the rations provided to prisoners aboard these ships matched or even exceeded the standard provisions allotted to American crew members. The prisoners received roughly 3,500 calories daily, which included fresh bread, hearty meat, a variety of vegetables, and beverages like coffee with sugar and milk. The strategic and generous provisioning of prisoners aboard these ships was not merely about sustenance. It was an integral part of a broader psychological campaign that aimed to demonstrate the vast differences between American abundance and the scarcity that had been ingrained in Nazi ideology. This early exposure to American resources helped to sow confusion and challenge the deeply held beliefs about the supposed invincibility and inhumane nature of the American war machine, ultimately contributing to the larger psychological strategy of victory through not only military might, but also moral and material superiority. The refrigeration systems aboard ships, which were considered standard equipment on American vessels, played a crucial role in preserving fresh food throughout long voyages across the Atlantic Ocean. These sophisticated systems ensured that perishable items remained edible and safe for consumption during the entire journey. One of the most striking aspects of this logistical feat was the frequent serving of ice cream on multiple occasions during these crossings. Historical records provide detailed accounts confirming that this frozen treat was not only available, but also served regularly during transit. For instance, the USS General M.B. Stewart's log from July of 1943 explicitly documents the distribution of ice cream to prisoners, utilizing the ship's dedicated ice cream maker, which had a capacity of producing 10 gallons of the dessert with each batch. For the prisoners, many of whom had not tasted ice cream since before the outbreak of the war, encountering this cold, sweet delicacy amid the vast expanse of the Atlantic Ocean was nothing short of astonishing and seemed almost surreal. The experience of biting into ice cream in the middle of the ocean defied the prisoners' expectations and created a moment of unexpected comfort and normalcy amid the hardships of wartime captivity. When these ships docked at prominent ports such as Norfolk and Newport News, the German prisoners of war, often called PSWs, found themselves confronting an America that Nazi propaganda had painted as an impossible and almost fantastical land. The propaganda had portrayed the United States as a nation of scarcity and deprivation, yet the reality was starkly different. The Norfolk Naval Base, sprawling across 4,300 acres and equipped with extensive waterfront facilities, was a hub of activity, handling more cargo on a daily basis than what major German ports managed in an entire week. Witnessing this bustling port, prisoners would see shops established specifically for dock workers, and their gaze would often fall upon shelves stocked with candy bars from renowned American manufacturers such as Hershey, Mars, and Nestle. Official military procurement records from 1943 reveal that these port exchanges were well stocked with dozens of different varieties of candy, all sold at the same standard prices across the country. Most candy bars, for example, costing 5 cents each. Such uniformity in pricing demonstrated the accessibility and commonality of these treats, starkly contrasting with the scarcity perceived through Nazi propaganda. The journey inland, typically by train, provided further insight into American life, revealing a level of comfort and normalcy that prisoners had not expected. Unlike the cattle cars used for transporting prisoners in Europe, the German PSWs traveled in passenger coaches designed for regular travelers, which often included dining cars serving full, hearty meals. Documentation from July of 1943 offers detailed menus showing dishes like fried chicken, various vegetables, pie, and coffee, all served in the dining cars. Prisoners soon discovered that this was not a matter of special treatment or privilege, but was, in fact, the standard service offered on American trains. This realization underscored the stark differences between the images propagated by Nazi propaganda and the reality of life in the United States, an America that, despite wartime hardships, maintained a level of comfort, abundance, and hospitality that was both surprising and enlightening to those who experienced it firsthand. The system of prison camps established throughout the United States to house prisoners of war was designed to provide conditions that not only met, but often surpassed the standards set by the Geneva Conventions. Among these, Camp Crossville in Tennessee stood as a representative example of the larger, more advanced facilities. This camp was equipped with modern amenities such as electric lighting, hot water supplies, flush toilets, and heated barracks, ensuring a level of comfort that was quite remarkable, given the circumstances. However, what truly left a profound impression on the prisoners and observers alike were the camp exchanges, shops and stores that supplied a variety of goods, which played a significant role in shaping the prisoners' daily lives and morale. According to records maintained by the Army Quartermaster, these camp exchanges were well stocked with an impressive array of products, including multiple brands of soft drinks such as Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, and RC Cola. Alongside these beverages, the stores offered a selection of popular candy bars and confections, and, where refrigeration was available, they provided ice cream. The variety extended further to cigarettes and tobacco products, fresh fruits, various snacks, and even beer with a modest alcohol content of 3.2% by volume. This assortment of items created a miniature reflection of American consumer culture within the confines of the camp, offering prisoners a taste of normalcy and comfort, far removed from the austerity of wartime. In terms of earnings, the prisoners engaged in labor received a modest wage, initially earning 80 cents per day, later increased to $1. With candy bars priced at 5 cents and Coca-Cola also costing 5 cents, a prisoner could, in a single day of work, purchase a substantial amount of goods, up to 16 items, an abundance that would have been unimaginable in Germany, where such products, if available at all, required special connections or were difficult to obtain. For the prisoners, Coca-Cola became more than just a beverage. It emerged as a powerful symbol of American industrial democracy, representing prosperity, abundance, and a level of economic freedom that contrasted sharply with the rationed and restricted life they often faced elsewhere. During the war, the Coca-Cola Company ramped up its production to extraordinary levels to meet the demand generated by military contracts and the needs of American troops and prisoners of war. Company records reveal that in the year 1943 alone, the company produced an astonishing 5 billion bottles of their signature drink. The military contract ensured that Coca-Cola, sold at a uniform price of 5 cents, was made available to American servicemen around the globe, a logistical challenge of unprecedented scale. This widespread distribution required complex and efficient logistics to ensure that each military installation, regardless of location, received regular supplies of this popular beverage. German prisoners, upon experiencing the reality of American wartime life, quickly learned that Coca-Cola was a ubiquitous presence across the United States. Before their capture, many had never encountered this soft drink, which was now an integral part of everyday life in America. They observed that Coca-Cola was delivered regularly to the camps and found, in vending machines and coolers everywhere they looked, at gas stations, factories, schools, and countless other public places. The sight of these vending machines, constantly stocked with chilled bottles of Coca-Cola, served as a stark reminder of the prosperity and consumer abundance that defined the American wartime experience, a stark contrast to the scarcity and rationing typical of wartime Germany. In the United States, people of all ages and social backgrounds casually indulged in a popular beverage, often discarding half-empty bottles without a second thought or concern for waste. This habitual consumption reflected a society where such items had become so commonplace that their presence and ease of access seemed almost trivial. The remarkable consistency of Coca-Cola's taste, regardless of whether it was enjoyed in the northern state of Maine or the southern plains of Texas, was a testament to the meticulous standards of American manufacturing. This uniformity in flavor, achieved through rigorous quality control measures, surpassed even the most advanced German industrial efforts of the era. The syrup concentrate, produced in Atlanta, Georgia, and then distributed across the nation to various bottling plants, exemplified a level of industrial coordination and logistical precision that could easily challenge Nazi stereotypes about the chaos and disorganization often associated with American industry. Official records from the archives of the Coca-Cola Company reveal that numerous prison camps across the country received regular, weekly shipments of between 200 and 300 cases of the beverage, each case containing 24 bottles. For example, at Camp Hearn in Texas alone, the consumption during the summer of 1943 reached approximately 7,000 bottles per week, illustrating just how integral Coca-Cola had become even within the confines of prison life. Meanwhile, the Germans, observing American prison camps from afar, found it difficult to comprehend the idea of serving ice cream, an indulgence they had not seen since before the outbreak of the war. Yet, military records from the United States confirmed that ice cream was indeed regularly served in camps equipped with sufficient refrigeration facilities during the hot summer months. The military regarded ice cream not merely as a treat, but as a vital morale booster, recognizing its importance in maintaining the spirits of soldiers and prisoners alike. So highly did they value this frozen delicacy that specialized ice cream ships were constructed specifically for the Pacific Fleet to ensure a steady supply. A vivid example of this was at Camp Shelby, Mississippi, where on the 4th of July in 1943, the celebration featured homemade ice cream prepared on site. Prisoners watched with fascination as hand-cranked freezers churned out gallons of the frozen dessert, made from a mixture of ice, salt, cream, sugar, and flavorings, all combined with resourcefulness and ingenuity. The casual use of scarce and valuable resources, such as ice during the peak of summer or cream and sugar for entertainment, demonstrated a set of priorities that the Germans simply could not comprehend. By the year 1944, many camps had transitioned to using electric ice cream makers, further reflecting the importance placed on maintaining morale and a sense of normalcy amid wartime hardships. The array of ice cream flavors available to prisoners, such as rich chocolate, smooth vanilla, fragrant strawberry, and creamy butter pecan, far surpassed the offerings that German ice cream parlors had before the war. For the inmates, these frozen treats represented a rare and luxurious delight, one that was easily accessible. Prisoners could purchase ice cream bars for just 10 cents, the same price as ice cream sandwiches, or indulge in cups of various flavors whenever they wished. According to military procurement records, larger camps ordered anywhere from 50 to 100 gallons of ice cream each week during the warmer summer months. While the frequency of these ice cream supplies varied depending on the location and season, it was a common occurrence for prisoners to enjoy this cold luxury, something that had all but disappeared from everyday life in Germany itself. The impact of sugar consumption in American prison camps was particularly significant and revealing of the contrasting lifestyles. In Germany, sugar was a scarce commodity, strictly rationed among civilians, who typically received only 280 grams per month whenever supplies were available. In stark contrast, American camp prisoners had unfettered access to sugar. It was often placed in bowls on mesh-topped tables in communal hallways, where anyone could help themselves without limitation. Records from the quartermaster, covering the years of 1943 to 1945, show that camps received weekly shipments of refined sugar amounting to 100-pound bags. This ample supply allowed camp bakeries to use sugar quite generously. As a result, baked goods, cakes, cookies, and pies appeared regularly on the menu, transforming the camp's culinary landscape into one of sweet abundance. The mess halls often added sugar to coffee, tea, cereals, and desserts without any restrictions, creating a diet marked by sweetness and variety. An illustrative incident from Camp Aliceville in Alabama provides a vivid example of this disparity. In August of 1943, humid weather caused several hundred pounds of sugar to harden, rendering it difficult to use in its current state. Unlike the Germans, who would have steamed and recovered the hardened sugar to prevent waste, American kitchen staff chose to discard the unusable sugar entirely and promptly ordered fresh supplies to replace it. This act of waste reportedly distressed German prisoners who worked in the camp kitchen, as they were accustomed to strict rationing and careful use of resources. The patterns of chocolate consumption among American prisoners further underscored a society of relative abundance and democratic access. Unlike in Germany, where such luxury items were scarce and tightly rationed, the American camps offered a starkly different experience, one marked by the unrestricted availability of sweets and treats, reflecting a lifestyle where comfort and indulgence could be enjoyed freely. Despite the constraints imposed by wartime restrictions, the major confectionery giants, Hershey, Mars, and Nestle, continued to produce millions of chocolate bars each month, ensuring that the demand for chocolate remained largely satisfied even during such challenging times. During the war years, the military alone purchased an astonishing 380 million pounds of chocolate products, underscoring the vital role that chocolate played not only as a comfort item, but also as a morale booster for troops. Within prison camps, the exchange markets were well stocked with multiple varieties of chocolate, including the standard Hershey bar, emergency chocolate rations, and several other candy bars that contain chocolate, all available at modest prices ranging from 5 to 10 cents. Prisoners quickly learned that among their fellow inmates, Americans showed clear preferences for certain chocolate brands, often selecting one over another based on taste or familiarity. The American Red Cross, in its effort to support prisoners, distributed monthly parcels that included a variety of items, among which chocolate bars were a common feature. These packages typically contained not only chocolate or candy bars, but also 2 packets of instant coffee, processed cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, and soap, items that served to supplement the prisoners' regular rations. Such parcels provided a touch of luxury that surpassed what German civilians received as their basic sustenance, offering prisoners a semblance of American comfort and familiarity amid their hardships. The significance of these packages was further highlighted during the Thanksgiving of 1943, a holiday that introduced German prisoners to the abundance and festive spirit characteristic of American celebrations. This purely American holiday vividly demonstrated the nation's remarkable capacity for coordinated consumption and resource allocation, a feat that greatly outstripped the organizational efforts of the German authorities. According to military records, every prison camp managed to serve a traditional Thanksgiving dinner, which included roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes smothered in gravy, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, assorted vegetables, pumpkin pie, as well as coffee and milk. An elaborate feast that embodied the essence of American holiday customs. The logistics involved in providing such a meal to approximately 425,000 prisoners of war were staggering, reflecting the extensive organizational capacity of the United States military. Simultaneously, the same logistical prowess was demonstrated on a global scale in the provisioning of Thanksgiving dinners to millions of American servicemen stationed around the world. These efforts underscored not only the military's ability to coordinate large-scale supply chains, but also the deep cultural importance placed on maintaining morale and a sense of normalcy for those serving far from home. The fact that German prisoners of war received the same meals as their American counterparts was a powerful symbol of equality and treatment, directly contradicting the deeply ingrained Nazi ideology of racial hierarchy and superiority. This parity in sustenance served as a subtle, yet profound assertion that, despite the brutal propaganda emphasizing racial distinctions, basic human dignity could be recognized regardless of nationality or race. The decision to provide identical rations was not merely a logistical or humanitarian gesture, but also a moral stance that challenged the very foundation of Nazi beliefs, emphasizing the universality of human rights, even amid wartime hostility. During the Christmas season of 1943, a remarkable display of compassion and generosity emerged from American civilians, revealing a spirit of kindness that transcended the boundaries of enemy lines. Numerous church groups, civic organizations, and individual citizens took it upon themselves to send packages to the German prisoners held in American custody. These acts of kindness were driven by a sense of moral obligation and empathy, reflecting the belief that even enemies deserved compassion during the holiday season. The American Friends Service Committee, one of the prominent organizations involved, alone managed to distribute approximately 50,000 Christmas packages to prisoners of war. These packages usually contained a variety of homemade cookies, candies, toiletries, games, books, cigarettes, and writing materials, providing comfort and a touch of normalcy to those confined behind barbed wire. Local communities living near the military camps often contributed additional support, further exemplifying grassroots compassion. In the town of Tonkawa, Oklahoma, residents would bring homemade treats directly to the German prisoners at Camp Tonkawa, sharing their holiday cheer across the enemy lines. Similarly, in Hearne, Texas, church groups organized visits to Camp Hearne, where they delivered Christmas cookies and candies to the prisoners, fostering a surprising connection grounded in human kindness. These acts of civilian generosity were not merely gestures of holiday goodwill, but represented a fundamental challenge to Nazi ideology. They demonstrated that Americans, despite having family members actively engaged in combat against Germany, could still show mercy and compassion toward those labeled as enemies. Such acts of charity highlighted a moral strength rooted in empathy, emphasizing the importance of mercy over vengeance, even in times of war. As the war progressed and labor shortages became more severe, German prisoners of war found themselves working increasingly outside the confines of the camps, gaining first-hand experience of American industry and agriculture. By the year 1944, Around 100,000 prisoners had been employed in various sectors, including farming and food processing. Their work not only helped alleviate labor shortages, but also provided them with a closer look at the abundance and productivity of American society. Many prisoners participated in harvesting crops in orchards and fields, witnessing the impressive scale of American agricultural output. In the orchards of Michigan, for example, German prisoners were tasked with picking cherries, which were then destined for the production of maraschino cherries, those bright, glossy garnishes used to decorate ice cream sundaes and other desserts. The volume of fruit harvested was staggering. Entire orchards yielded tons of cherries for the purpose of creating decorative items that adorned countless desserts across the country. Such scenes illustrated the vastness of American food production, and the prisoners' direct involvement in these processes offered them an intimate understanding of the country's abundance and resourcefulness. Through their work, they saw firsthand the remarkable scale of American agriculture, a testament to the nation's capacity to produce enough to sustain both its population and its wartime allies. During their time in captivity, the prisoners gained a detailed insight into the impressive efficiency and seemingly boundless abundance of American food production and distribution systems. One notable observation was related to the canned food industry. Prisoners noticed that, in canneries, a rigorous quality control process was in place, which often led to the rejection of perfectly edible food simply because it had minor imperfections. For instance, Del Monte's records from the year 1944 reveal that roughly one-fifth of the fruit intended for canning was discarded, primarily due to slight irregularities in size or minor blemishes that did not affect the edibility, but were deemed unsuitable for sale or processing. Such rejected fruits were usually redirected as animal feed, illustrating the high standards and meticulous sorting that characterized American food processing at the time. Furthermore, the prisoners learned about the remarkable level of mechanization involved in agricultural processing, particularly in the production of sugar beets. In regions like Colorado and Nebraska, the extent of mechanization in sugar beet farming surpassed even what the Germans had achieved, highlighting the advanced technological methods employed in American agriculture. Individual farms in these states were capable of producing more sugar beets than entire German regions, underscoring the scale and efficiency of American farming operations. This insight into the agricultural infrastructure helped prisoners comprehend the sheer volume of food production in the United States, which, combined with other factors, contributed to their understanding of the casual abundance they observed during their imprisonment. The prisoners also observed the social and institutional aspects of American life, especially concerning education. Near the prisons, they witnessed the early development of organized school lunch programs, which provided children with hot midday meals that included milk, proteins, and vegetables. Although the formalized National School Lunch Act would not be enacted until 1946, these programs had already been operating during the war years as informal or experimental initiatives. The sight of children receiving nutritious lunches left a significant impression on the prisoners, particularly the milk component. Many schools delivered fresh milk to students daily, a logistical feat that involved complex planning and organization, capable of serving thousands of schools across the country. This level of organization and the ability to provide such consistent nourishment contrasted sharply with the food shortages and rationing faced by children in Germany at the same time. Some school cafeterias even offered ice cream for purchase, a small luxury that symbolized the wealth and democratic abundance of the United States. The idea that children could buy frozen desserts at school, while German children were struggling with shortages and scarcity, left a profound impact on the prisoners' perceptions. It was a vivid illustration of the differences between the two societies' approaches to food security and social welfare. When prisoners classified as minimum security were allowed to eat at American diners under guard, they encountered a world of abundance and choice that was starkly different from the austerity and rationing prevalent in their homeland. This experience of witnessing such democratic prosperity firsthand deeply influenced their understanding of the American way of life. During the years surrounding the mid-1940s, A remarkable phenomenon unfolded in the realm of culinary accessibility within wartime America. Small, unassuming eateries, often overlooked in the grand narrative, offered menus that, in terms of variety and refinement, could easily rival those found in the most prestigious and elite establishments across Germany. These modest establishments welcomed everyone, regardless of social standing or financial means, making high-quality, diverse food options available to the average person. Historical documentation from the year 1944 vividly illustrates this point. A simple hamburger could be purchased for just 25 cents. A bottle of Coca-Cola cost only 5 cents. A slice of pie was priced at a modest 15 cents, and a decadent ice cream sundae went for 25 cents. For a full, satisfying dinner, one could expect to pay somewhere between 65 and 75 cents. Such prices made it possible for nearly anyone to indulge in a variety of delicious foods, breaking down the barriers of social stratification that traditionally divided different classes in society. This egalitarian approach to service was evident in every aspect of these eateries. Customers could freely order any dish they desired, regardless of their social status, and would be served by the same waitstaff, often at adjacent counter stools. The uniformity of service and pricing starkly contrasted with the rigid social hierarchy prevalent in Germany at the time. In Germany, social stratification dictated not only access to certain foods, but also the quality and quantity available to different classes. Yet, in America's small restaurants, the experience was identical for a factory worker and a bank president. Both could sit side by side, enjoying the same meals, served by the same waitress, for the same price, an embodiment of democratic equality in everyday life. As prisoners of war gained access to American publications during this period, they began to uncover astonishing facts about the scale of American industrial productivity, which far surpassed German efforts. Data from 1944 vividly illustrated America's manufacturing capacity. Approximately 7 million tons of sugar were produced, and the output of chocolate and cocoa products reached an astonishing 380 million pounds, primarily for military use. The production of Coca-Cola alone soared to 5 billion bottles in 1943, a figure that underscores the massive scale of American soft drink manufacturing. Ice cream production exceeded 500 million gallons, a staggering amount considering the wartime context, and milk production reached a remarkable 119 billion gallons. In stark contrast, German production during the same period was markedly limited and heavily rationed. Sugar supplies were constrained, primarily obtained from beet crops, and was allocated mainly for essential domestic consumption. Chocolate, considered a military priority, was produced in limited quantities to support the war effort, leaving soft drinks and ice cream almost entirely unavailable to the German populace. The production of ice cream was virtually non-existent within Germany, and milk availability was severely restricted through rationing mechanisms, which prioritized critical needs. The contrast between American and German wartime production was not just a matter of numbers but also of visibility. These statistics, published openly and widely in American media outlets, served as undeniable evidence that the United States' wartime industrial output surpassed even Germany's peacetime peaks. By the end of 1944, an intriguing reversal had begun. German prisoners of war, once recipients of food packages sent from Germany, now found themselves sending food parcels back home. Utilizing camp wages earned through prison labor, many prisoners purchased American-made products, such as chocolate bars, instant coffee, and canned goods, with the intention of mailing these items back to their families in Germany. This exchange highlighted the stark disparity between the two nations' capacities to produce and distribute food. Confirming these observations, records maintained by the International Red Cross documented this remarkable shift. Prisoners were no longer merely receiving aid from home, but were actively sending supplies across borders, using the very resources that the American wartime economy had so efficiently produced. During the period of captivity in America, German prisoners managed to send an astonishing number of parcels, around 11 million in total, back to their homeland. The majority of these parcels were filled with food items, serving as vital sustenance for their families who, unlike their imprisoned relatives, faced the dire reality of starvation and hardship during wartime. This exchange of goods and the tangible display of American abundance had a profound psychological and ideological impact on German families. It starkly contrasted with the scarcity and deprivation they endured, thereby subtly undermining the Nazi regime's propaganda and ideological narratives that emphasized self-sufficiency and resilience. The wartime rationing system implemented in America starkly highlighted the differences between the two societies' approaches to resource management and everyday life. While Americans endured strict rationing measures, such as a limit of 2 ounces of sugar per person per month, which was more than 3 times the German quota when supplies were available, these restrictions still did not prevent Americans from maintaining relatively high levels of consumption. In fact, despite these limitations, the American population continued to enjoy a standard of living that Germans would have considered an unattainable luxury. For example, the Office of Price Administration's records reveal that in the year 1944, Americans purchased approximately 74 pounds of sugar per capita, even with rationing in place. This amount was 10 times the average sugar consumption of Germans during the same period, illustrating a significant disparity in available resources and lifestyle. Similarly, the American rationing system for meat, which allowed each person 28 ounces weekly, surpassed the entire monthly ration allocated to Germans, further emphasizing the economic and social differences between the two nations. Moreover, Americans managed to sustain high levels of consumption in spite of rationing, which was a testament to the abundance of resources and the efficiency of wartime production. This abundance extended beyond basic necessities. Prisoners of war, for instance, discovered the vast and thriving soft drink industry in the United States, which was characterized by a remarkable variety of brands and flavors. Beyond the well-known Coca-Cola, the American market was filled with competitors such as Pepsi-Cola, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and numerous regional brands, all vying for consumer attention across the nation. This incredible diversity in soft drink offerings not only showcased the richness of the American market, but also demonstrated a level of economic freedom and technological sophistication that was virtually impossible under a German-controlled economy. Bottling plants were strategically located in every large city, and their operations were highly standardized and efficient. The technology involved, encompassing carbonation, bottling, capping, and labeling, was streamlined to produce vast quantities of bottles with minimal waste. Each bottling plant was capable of producing millions of bottles annually, ensuring a steady supply of soft drinks for the American population. The extensive distribution network reached even the smallest towns, gas stations, and grocery stores, making these beverages accessible to virtually everyone. By the end of the war, American soft drink production had soared to billions of bottles each year, averaging dozens of bottles per person annually, a level of market saturation that highlighted the nation's economic vitality and consumer culture. This widespread availability of soft drinks, along with the overall abundance of food and other goods, underscored the fundamental disparities between the wartime societies of America and Germany. While Americans enjoyed a seemingly endless supply of consumer products and comforts, Germans faced scarcity and rationing as part of their everyday reality. The contrast was not merely about material differences, but also reflected deeper social and economic divides, which had significant implications for morale, ideology, and the perception of prosperity during the tumultuous years of the Second World War. In the vast landscape of wartime industry, there was one particular sector whose output surpassed the entire range of German consumer goods combined. This was no ordinary achievement. It represented a monumental shift in the economic and logistical capabilities of the Allied forces. As the spring of 1945 unfolded, heralding the final phase of the war in Europe, this sector faced a decisive and devastating blow. With the relentless advance of American troops deep into German territory, the psychological and ideological fabric of the enemy began to unravel at an alarming pace. In the United States, German prisoners of war watched newsreels that vividly depicted the scenes of American soldiers distributing chocolate bars and chewing gum to German children. These images struck a deep emotional chord as they showcased children's pure, unfiltered joy upon receiving American confections, the very treats that their own government had failed to provide amidst the chaos of war and hardship. For these young recipients, the simple act of receiving candy from the Americans symbolized more than just a sweet snack. It embodied hope, kindness, and a stark contrast to the grim reality they faced under their own regime. The imagery of smiling children clutching American treats served as a profound ideological blow to the German wartime narrative, shattering the illusion of victory and superiority that their regime had long propagated. The contrast between the advancing American troops and the crumbling German state was stark and undeniable. While soldiers moved forward into enemy territory, carrying enough candy and small comforts to share generously, the German government, which had once promised triumph and prosperity, was now delivering only starvation and despair. The images of concentration camp liberations, widely circulated among the Allied forces, further underscored this disparity. American soldiers, upon liberating these sites of horror, often shared their rations with the emaciated survivors, victims whose skeletal frames were a testament to the brutal deprivation they had endured. These acts of sharing, of offering nourishment and compassion, vividly demonstrated the humane values that the Allies stood for, contrasting sharply with the cruelty inflicted by the regime that these victims had served. Between the years of 1945 and 1946, the German prisoners of war, many of whom had experienced American captivity, began their long journey back to a homeland that was almost completely destroyed. Remarkably, many of these prisoners, having gained weight during their time in captivity, thanks to the relative abundance of rations, returned healthier than when they had been captured. Conversely, their families, left behind in a land ravaged by war, faced the brutal reality of starvation and severe deprivation, often losing weight and strength as a result. These contrasting physical states, the prisoners returning with signs of nourishment and vitality while their families suffered from hunger, highlighted the profound disparity between abundance and scarcity that defined the post-war landscape. The knowledge of this abundance gained during captivity was a stark revelation for many returning prisoners, who brought with them stories of plentiful food and comfort that seemed almost foreign in their ravaged homeland. Medical examinations confirmed this narrative. In general, the prisoners returned in better health, their bodies reflecting the relative plenty they had experienced. Yet, upon reuniting with their families, they found them weakened and emaciated, victims of the widespread deprivation that engulfed German society in the aftermath of the war. The undeniable physical evidence, the robust health of the returning prisoners versus the frailty of their families, became a poignant symbol of the stark contrast between American abundance and German scarcity. Many prisoners, upon their release, carried with them final packages from the Red Cross, treasured supplies of chocolate, coffee, and canned goods. These items became invaluable keepsakes, symbols of hope and relief that could be shared with loved ones. To children who had long forgotten the taste of chocolate, these gifts proved extraordinary. They were a revelation, a taste of sweetness in a time of hardship. Fathers, having been able to enjoy ice cream regularly during their imprisonment, often brought back Hershey bars, which their children eagerly cherished. These simple yet powerful tokens of generosity and compassion served as tangible links to a better, more abundant world. Worlds that the war had temporarily disrupted but could not entirely erase. Many former prisoners of war, once seen solely as adversaries or victims, unexpectedly emerged as staunch advocates for the Marshall Plan, contributing to a profound shift in perceptions about American aid and its underlying principles. Having personally witnessed the remarkable abundance and prosperity that characterized post-war America, an abundance that was not rooted in a zero-sum game where one nation's gain was another's loss. They came to understand that prosperity arose from productive enterprise, rather than from territorial conquest or resource extraction. Their testimonies, emphasizing that Americans possess the economic capacity to generously assist and rebuild their former enemies, played a significant role in fostering German acceptance and support for American financial aid. These men recognized that American strength derived fundamentally from its ability to produce goods and wealth, rather than from exploiting others or engaging in aggressive expansion. Having seen a society where food was so plentiful that it could be wasted even amidst the chaos of a global conflict, they internalized a mental model of economic development centered on creation, innovation, and productive capacity rather than destruction. This mindset, focused on building rather than conquering, became a guiding principle for West Germany's approach to economic recovery after the war. The so-called German economic miracle of the 1950s was, in large part, rooted in the insights and experiences gained during their captivity in American prison camps, where they observed firsthand the efficiencies of American production methods, distribution networks, and the widespread consumer abundance that characterized American life. These former prisoners of war, having learned from their time in captivity, applied these lessons to the reconstruction of their homeland. They understood that mass production techniques could significantly reduce the costs of luxury goods, making them accessible to a broader population. Standardization emerged as a key strategy, ensuring both consistent quality and increased efficiency in manufacturing processes. They also saw that a society with abundant consumer goods fostered political stability, as satisfied citizens were less prone to unrest. Moreover, they realized that the principles of industrial democracy, where workers had a say in production, could ultimately outperform authoritarian control in terms of productivity and innovation. The influence of American consumer culture, symbolized by familiar products such as Coca-Cola and ice cream, played a pivotal role in shaping a new generation of German business leaders and policymakers. The transformation of these former prisoners of war through exposure to American food abundance is well documented across a variety of sources, including military quartermaster records, international Red Cross reports, corporate archives, especially those of Coca-Cola, and correspondence from prisoners of war, much of which was censored during the occupation but has since been preserved. Post-war interviews and memoirs, along with extensive academic research, notably the thorough studies conducted by Arnold Kramer, provide a detailed account of how these experiences influenced Germany's recovery. In essence, the story of these men's transformation underscores a fundamental shift in mindset, from viewing economic strength as stemming from conquest to understanding it as rooted in productive capacity, innovation, and consumer abundance. Their insights and experiences significantly contributed to the ideological and practical foundation of West Germany's remarkable post-war economic resurgence. Arnold Kramer, recognized as the foremost historian specializing in the study of German prisoner of war, POW, experiences in America, reached a compelling conclusion. The abundance of food played a pivotal role in transforming ideological beliefs. His meticulous research demonstrated that the plentiful, casual consumption of American food had a profound impact, an impact so significant that it often outstripped the effects of formal re-education programs designed to dismantle Nazi myths of racial superiority and national supremacy. In essence, the simple, everyday availability of food in America proved to be an unexpectedly powerful force in shaping perceptions and attitudes. The statistical data Kramer assembled offers a compelling, irrefutable narrative. For the years spanning 1943 to 1946, the average American prisoner of war's daily caloric intake ranged from approximately 3,300 to 3,600 calories. This level of nourishment was complemented by regular access to sugar, with about 4 months' worth available monthly, and a weekly provision of roughly 32 ounces of meat. Additionally, prisoners could count on a daily quart of milk, with ice cream being a common treat during the summer months. Soft drinks, inexpensive and plentiful at 5 cents each, were available without restriction, symbolizing the carefree consumption typical of American civilian life. In stark contrast, the German civilians living in the same period faced a very different reality. Their daily caloric intake was significantly lower, around 1,200 to 1,500 calories per day. Sugar was a scarce commodity, available only in limited quantities, about 280 grams monthly when supplies allowed. Meat was a rare luxury, with weekly rations averaging just over 10.5 ounces, and often it was unavailable altogether. Milk was severely rationed, making daily access rare, and ice cream was virtually non-existent. Soft drinks, so freely accessible to American prisoners, were entirely unavailable to the German civilian population. These stark disparities in nutrition and food availability were not mere propaganda or exaggerated tales. They were well-documented facts, reflecting the harsh realities of post-war life in Germany. The differences in nourishment between the two groups extended beyond mere statistics. They vividly illustrated the broader social and ideological implications of American abundance. Remarkably, the data revealed that even enemy prisoners of war, living under controlled conditions, enjoyed better nourishment than the average German civilian. This fact underscored an important truth. The American standard of living, exemplified by food availability, extended its influence even to those who had fought against the United States, subtly shaping their perceptions and experiences. This exposure to American food culture during captivity left a lasting imprint on many German prisoners of war, influencing the post-war reconstruction of Germany itself. When Coca-Cola made its triumphant return to West Germany in 1949, it quickly became a potent symbol of the American alliance and the newfound prosperity. The emergence of ice cream parlors, modeled after classic American soda fountains, began to appear in German cities, serving as tangible symbols of modernity and progress. Candy bars and chewing gum, once unfamiliar or inaccessible, morphed into emblems of recovery, hope, and a connection to the American way of life. Many former prisoners of war, having experienced firsthand the appeal of American food products, often took on roles as importers of these goods, recognizing their significance beyond mere taste. They understood that these items embodied more than flavor. They represented a broader cultural message: abundance, democracy, and the promise of a better future. In this way, the simple act of eating and enjoying American food became intertwined with the larger narratives of liberation, modernity, and ideological transformation that shaped post-war Germany's path forward. The advent of supermarkets in Germany during the 1950s was driven by a group of individuals known as former prisoners of war, or PWs, who had first-hand experience of the American grocery store system. These men, having been exposed to the United States' approach to food distribution, recognized that achieving a truly democratic and plentiful society required more than merely boosting production levels. Instead, it necessitated innovative methods of distribution that could make abundance accessible to all. Throughout various interviews conducted in the aftermath of the war, as well as through personal memoirs, these former PWs consistently highlighted how the availability of plentiful food fundamentally altered their perceptions and understanding of society. One particularly illustrative account comes from a former officer of the Africa Corps, who, in a recorded interview from 1975, remarked that his expectations had been to see an America weakened and divided, an enemy easily defeated. However, what he encountered instead was a nation capable of providing ice cream to its adversaries, a symbol of abundance and generosity. This realization marked a profound shift in his worldview, signaling that Germany's defeat on the battlefield was only part of a larger, more profound loss, the loss of their entire previous outlook on life and society. Another vivid memory from a veteran interviewed in a documentary filmed in 1985 describes his first encounter with Coca-Cola. He recalled that initial sip as akin to drinking the future itself. Sweet, fizzy, seemingly unnecessary, yet universally available for just a nickel. That simple beverage embodied everything that Nazi Germany was not: abundance, democratic equality, and joy. It was a stark contrast to the austerity and scarcity that had characterized the wartime period and represented a new way of life, one rooted in openness and shared prosperity. These testimonies, collected over the course of several decades, serve to underscore a powerful truth. The abundance of American food and consumer goods succeeded in achieving what military victory alone could never accomplish: an entire ideological transformation. The men who had entered the war as soldiers fighting for their country, often fueled by nationalist fervor and militarism, emerged from their experiences as witnesses to a different kind of prosperity, one based on democratic values, equality, and dignity. Historians now widely acknowledge that the German experience in America during this period served as an effective form of re-education. Unlike traditional propaganda, which relies heavily on persuasive messaging, this re-education was rooted in the direct observation of American society in action. The PWs observed a functioning society where productivity was maximized, yet where even enemies were treated with respect and dignity. The role of food in this process was particularly significant because it was something universal, something that transcended language, ideology, and national borders. It was a tangible, accessible symbol of the democratic ideals that Americans embodied, and it played a crucial role in reshaping perceptions and beliefs. Through this exposure to abundance, the former PWs gained a new understanding of what democracy could mean in practice: not just a political system, but a way of life characterized by prosperity, generosity, and joy shared among all members of society. The concepts of hunger and fullness are universally understood, their significance undeniable to all. The visible signs of weight gain and improved health served as clear indicators of a process unfolding before everyone's eyes. During a period marked by persistent scarcity, individuals relied on 3 meals a day, supplemented by additional purchases at canteens, forming a routine that contrasted sharply with the deprivation experienced by prisoners of war. Those prisoners, confined behind barbed wires, had a deep, almost intimate familiarity with the harsh realities of German austerity and deprivation. In stark contrast, each meal consumed by the prisoners became more than just nourishment. It evolved into a living lesson, illustrating the remarkable industrial capacity of America. Every Coca-Cola they drank exemplified the efficiency of standardization and the seamlessness of distribution systems that turned mass-produced goods into accessible commodities. Each Sunday, when ice cream appeared, it served as a vivid demonstration that abundance, typically associated with prosperity, could be democratized, shared freely, and enjoyed by all segments of society. The children of these prisoners, growing up with stories of American abundance inside the confines of prison camps, began to internalize a narrative that initially seemed almost fantastical. These tales of plentiful food, comfort, and variety appeared to be mere legends at first. But as West Germany gradually recovered from the scars of war and occupation, American products started to flood the market, transforming those stories into tangible reality. The myth of American plenty, born amidst the austere conditions of prison camps, played a significant role in shaping entire generations' perceptions of prosperity and abundance. This narrative would go on to influence not only personal beliefs, but also the broader cultural and economic relations between Germany and America. Many of these children, inspired by their father's stories of seemingly impossible abundance, later pursued studies or careers in the United States. When they arrived, they discovered that the reality closely matched the tales they had heard. Supermarkets, with their vast array of products, became symbols of this newfound abundance. Soda fountains, where ice-cold sundaes were served with flair, and candy aisles brimming with dozens of choices, vividly exemplified the shift from scarcity to plenitude. This transformation was not limited to individual experiences, but extended across entire communities and economic sectors. West German businesses absorbed vital lessons about consumer culture, learning to standardize quality, offer variety, and develop markets that catered to the democratic ideal of accessible abundance. The economic miracle that West Germany experienced was not solely about increased production. It was fundamentally about creating a world of abundance accessible to ordinary citizens. This shift engendered a sense of shared prosperity and democratized access to goods and services that had once been luxuries. In the present day, the influence of these historical changes is evident. McDonald's operates more than 1,400 restaurants across Germany, and Coca-Cola is found in nearly every corner of the country. Ice cream, once a rare treat, has become a commonplace pleasure. The transformation from a scarcity-driven society to one of abundance, a process that was initiated within the confines of American prison camps, has reached its conclusion. Nonetheless, the lessons embedded in this history remain powerful, reminding us of the profound impact that the promise of abundance can have on a nation's development and identity. The transformation of ideology often emerges not through acts of scarcity or deprivation, but rather through the experience of abundance and generosity. It is through kindness, compassion, and sharing that profound change can take root, contrasting sharply with the destructive forces of cruelty and propaganda. One illustrative example lies in the story of a German prisoner of war who, while confined in an American camp, was initially incredulous at the sight of ice cream and Coca-Cola, luxuries that seemed almost unbelievable within the bleak confines of a prison environment. This moment of astonishment revealed a deeper truth, that democracy's most potent weapon was the capacity to produce and distribute abundance, an abundance so effortless that it could be offered to even one's enemies without hesitation. This narrative of a German soldier witnessing American food abundance encapsulates one of history's most unusual and remarkable victories. It was a victory not achieved through violence or military conquest alone, but through acts of generosity and the sharing of simple pleasures. In this light, a war was effectively won by acts of kindness. It was an ideological defeat for the Nazi worldview, symbolized by the seemingly trivial yet profoundly significant act of offering ice cream or a Coca-Cola. The very foundation of the Nazi ideology was undermined, not by bullets or bombs, but by the soft, sweet appeal of American consumer culture, by ice cream, soft drinks, and the capacity to indulge in excess. Those men, initially shaped by the convictions of superiority and disdain for American weakness, experienced a remarkable transformation through the simple act of sharing abundance. Instead of punishment or force, it was the sheer availability of plentiful resources that opened their eyes. They arrived with the belief that German strength was invincible and that American society was fragile and decadent. Yet, they departed understanding that American power was fundamentally rooted in its prodigious productive capacity, its ability to generate so much that resources could be wasted without concern for depletion. This capacity for excess was not just about material wealth. It was a symbol of strength that transcended military might. The society capable of providing prisoners with Coca-Cola at a mere 5 cents per bottle wielded a form of power far beyond the reach of armies or weapons. It demonstrated that economic and cultural abundance could serve as a form of influence, an intangible yet formidable form of dominance. The iconic American dessert, the ice cream sundae, with its layers of overflowing ice cream, syrup drizzled generously, whipped cream piled high, nuts sprinkled on top, and crowned with a bright cherry, became a powerful metaphor for this exceptional abundance. Each individual component, rich, sweet, and indulgent, exceeded the dreams of the German soldiers, who had come to view their own nation's strength as superior. When these elements were combined into a single sundae, they embodied an almost impossible luxury made accessible on a routine basis. The fact that enemies could request second helpings of such delights, while German children faced hunger and deprivation, starkly illuminated the complete failure of Nazi ideals. It vividly highlighted how Nazi propaganda and ideology had been rooted in scarcity and suffering, and how, by contrast, American abundance revealed a fundamental truth. Prosperity and generosity could serve as powerful tools for shaping perceptions and values. Many former prisoners of war recalled specific moments of profound realization, those sensory experiences that left lasting impressions. The first sip of Coca-Cola's fizzy effervescence, the initial taste of cold ice cream on a warm day, or the first bite of a rich Hershey's chocolate bar. These simple pleasures carried a weight far greater than words or arguments could convey. Their memories of these moments became symbolic of a deeper understanding, an awakening to the idea that the real power of a society lies in its capacity to fulfill desires, to indulge, and to share abundance freely. In essence, these experiences underscored a fundamental truth, that the most effective form of influence is rooted in kindness, generosity, and plentifulness. It was a lesson in the profound strength that can be wielded not through oppression or force, but through the simple, universal act of sharing something sweet and delightful. A lesson that altered perceptions and shattered long-held beliefs about power and superiority. Having once tasted the sweet nectar of democracy, they found it impossible to forget that initial experience. It had left a profound and indelible mark upon their hearts and minds. That moment of transformation was not only complete, but also irrevocable, sealing their change in a way that could never be undone. Men who had previously marched under the banners of the Third Reich, men who had once believed in conquest and domination, returned from captivity not as enemies, but as unlikely messengers of abundance and hope. They carried with them a revolutionary message that challenged the very foundations of their previous beliefs. True prosperity, they now understood, did not stem from conquest or force, but from the liberty to enjoy life's simple pleasures and to share abundance freely. These former foes had come to realize that the most potent weapon of the United States was not its military arsenal, nor its technological superiority, but something far more subtle and powerful: the capacity to bestow joy through acts of kindness and generosity. They discovered that, even in the bleak surroundings of prison camps, the simple act of offering ice cream to an enemy could serve as a potent symbol of goodwill, capable of transforming hostility into understanding. In fact, it was in these unlikely settings, American detention centers, that the symbolic power of Coca-Cola bottles and bowls of ice cream achieved what armies and political campaigns could only aspire to: the complete transformation of adversaries' hearts and minds, forging a bridge of empathy and shared human experience. The German prisoners of war, who once doubted that such abundance could truly exist, a world where comfort and joy were accessible even behind barbed wire, became the most fervent advocates of this newfound truth. They carried home with them the profound realization that democracy's essence tasted sweet, like rich chocolate, and that freedom itself fizzed with the lively sparkle of carbonation, invigorating the spirit and awakening hope. Their stories serve as a poignant reminder that sometimes the most enduring victories are not achieved through destruction or violence, but through gentle demonstration and acts of kindness. These victories are won by giving rather than taking, by fostering understanding instead of hatred, and most remarkably, by serving ice cream to enemies on a scorching summer day. The men who experienced American abundance firsthand, even while they were prisoners, became the most unlikely ambassadors of liberty. Their transformation, brought about by the seemingly impossible sight of Coca-Cola and ice cream within the confines of American prison camps, embodied the profound truth that love and compassion can prevail over hostility. This unlikely change forever altered their perceptions, making them living proof that sometimes the most powerful form of victory lies not in force of arms, but in the simple, generous act of sharing joy with those who seem most different from ourselves.